Welcome to Meet the Candidate, and our guest for this session is Denny Heck, who is a candidate for Lieutenant Governor. Welcome, Denny.
Thank you, Sue.
I know you're experienced in communication, but this is a real basic get acquainted conversation, starting with tell me about where you grew up and went to school.
Lifelong Washingtonian, Sue, born in Vancouver, Washington, the oldest continuously inhabited non-Indian settlement in the entire Pacific Northwest. Graduated from high school there and then the Evergreen State College. After a couple of 3 different kinds of jobs, got myself elected to the State House of Representatives, where I served as majority leader. Then thereafter, I was honored to be asked by then Governor Booth Gardner to serve as his chief of staff. After that, my friend Stan Marshburn and I co-founded and created out of whole cloth your very favorite statewide public affairs network, TVW. And then after a few years in the private sector and being semi-retired, during which time I, along with another friend, co-founded a company which we built from 2 employees to 300 and then sold it. Then I ran for Congress in 2012 and was honored to be elected from the brand new 10th Congressional District, where I've served for the last 8 years. I've been married. I'm a newlywed. I've only been married 44 years to a Spokane woman, as a matter of fact. Paula Frusi. She and I have 2 grown sons, and that's kind of the thumbnail sketch.
Well, going back then to those early years in Vancouver, as a kid or as a teenager, did you have some any interesting job experiences that have helped shape how you approach the world?
Absolutely. The most transformative experience of my youth was going to work in the fields at the age of 10. My dad was a truck driver. My mom was a telephone operator. There were 4 of us children, and we were taught early that if you wanted to have new school clothes come September, then you needed to figure out a way to earn some money. Mom and Dad had kind of a matching grant system for us. So when I was 10, I began picking strawberries and green beans and raspberries, and that developed into the job of my youth, which is to work on the farm of a neighbor. Until such time as I graduated from high school. And it taught me the value of hard work, frankly. Now, Sue, the truth of the matter is I never would have wanted my sons to go to work in a field at age 10, but there's no question that it had a big impact on me and taught me the relationship between effort extended and reward received.
That's kind of why I asked that question, is everybody has to learn that connection somewhere, and maybe it isn't as a 10-year-old in the field, but it has to be someplace. So is there interesting travel or volunteer experiences that have also helped shape your view of the world, your values?
So I would cite 2 travel experiences that have had an impact on me. First of all, my father was from South Dakota and my mother was from Texas. And so every summer we would either drive to Texas and back or South Dakota and back or to both places to visit all our relatives who stayed in South Dakota and Texas. And that gave me an opportunity as a young person growing up to see the entire western United States and the great expanse of our magnificent republic. Much later on, and in fact in my current position as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives and specifically as a member of the House Intelligence Committee, I have been tasked on multiple occasions to visit foreign countries in an effort to develop the relationships between the 2 intelligence communities. It's been very eye-opening and, frankly, horizon expanding.
Okay. What are some lessons that you bring back from that travel? You said horizon expanding. Is there an example that comes to mind?
Mm-hmm. The importance of having these kinds of relationships If we want to hold up and advance democratic values, then we need to have multilateral relationships with other countries that share our same values. It also gave me a healthy respect for how some other countries view America. I was sitting in an embassy not that long ago, having dinner with the highest ranking intelligence officers of the country, for obvious reasons I won't reveal which. On my right was the deputy director of what would be a combination of our CIA and FBI. This was a democratic country. On my left was the head of it. And the guy on the right, the deputy director, was pretty gregarious, and we had a fun conversation all night. The guy on the left, who was the head of it, he was pretty taciturn. I couldn't get him much to speak. And then at one point, toward the end of the evening, he turns to me and he says, "I was just in America." I said, "Oh, well, I presume you have to go once or twice a year to kind of keep the relationships current with your fellow intelligence community." He goes, "No, I was on vacation." I go, "Oh, what'd you do?" He goes, and he broke into this great big smile, and he goes, "I rented a Harley and drove it on Route 66 from Chicago all the way to LA. It was the best vacation of my life." And it just really, it suggested to me that America is the indispensable nation on the global platform. We are exceptional. We don't always live up to those exceptional aspirations and values, but there's no question that what America stands for is something that touches the hearts of people throughout the world.
Well, you've turned your attention back from the federal level to the state level, and you're looking at the office of Lieutenant Governor. It's one of the more obscure offices for many voters. If you could take a couple of minutes.
Thank you for that, Sue.
Well, but it's very necessary. Being obscure isn't its own fault. Can you explain what its importance is and what the duties are of the job?
Well, think of it in three buckets. Number one, the Lieutenant Governor is our insurance policy in case the governor, God forbid, ever got hit by a bus. According to our Constitution, the Lieutenant Governor automatically ascends to the job. Number two, by Constitution, the Lieutenant Governor is also the President of the Senate, the presiding officer who has to make parliamentary rulings, has to break tie votes, and by tradition, not by law, also is the voting chair of the Senate Rules Committee. Then the third bucket is this kind of big amorphous other duties as assigned or self-assigned. In law, the Lieutenant Governor is a member of 10 boards and commissions. Notably, he or she chairs the Legislative Committee on Economic Development and International Relations. So those are the three basic duties broadly put for the Lieutenant Governor.
Okay, so coming up to our wrap-up question to you, what's your pitch for why should people vote for Denny Heck for Washington State Lieutenant Governor?
Well, thank you, Sue, and thanks again for having me on. It relates very directly to the duties as I've just put forth. Number one, they have to be ready to be governor. As a former chief of staff to a governor, I've been as close to being governor as you can humanly be without actually being governor. I know what that job entails. I don't seek it, I don't aspire to it, but I'm ready if duty should call. I've also made very clear, Sue, that if there were a vacancy in the governor's office, and the elephant in the room is if Vice President Biden is elected and taps Jay Inslee for a cabinet post, then there would be. I've also made it very clear that under no circumstances, if I were to become governor, would I run for re-election as governor. And the reason's simple. I'm running for lieutenant governor because that's the job I'd like to have. Number two, presiding over the Senate. I have hundreds of hours presiding over the State House of Representatives, again where I was majority leader, and which uses the same rule book, and the U.S. House of Representatives. I have more hours than all my opponents combined, as a matter of fact. And thirdly, other duties as assigned. I mentioned the Legislative Committee on Economic Development. I have worked intermittently in the private sector, and I know what it takes to be able to create a payroll and be able to market a successful good or services out there in the highly competitive marketplace. I know for a fact that we're going to have to rebuild our economy in this state and this nation. And I bring some season and experience, part of my track record, to that discussion.
Okay, well, thank you for joining me today, Denny, and good luck with your campaign.
Oh, can I say one last word?
Sure.
Go Zags. Preseason number 1.
90 million Christians are eligible to vote.
40 million didn't.
That's 45%
of eligible Christians not voting.
We can change that.
We Believe We Vote was designed to arm people of faith with information on candidates
and how they line up with biblical and constitutional principles.
It's simply WeBelieveWeVote.com.
We're on a mission to rev up the 2020 election.
Tell your friends, your neighbors, and especially your pastors to rev up.
Be an educated voter.
Arm yourself with truth based on the Word of God.
2020, rev up.
Register, educate, vote.
Rev up.
Rev up.
Rev up 2020.